What's happening, everybody? Today, we have a special guest on the show. We're going to talk a lot about real estate investing, kind of just what it feels like to punt your fears, legacy for himself and for his family. I don't want to go too far into where we're at now. We're going to start in the past a little bit, work into the present, and then talk about this legacy into the future. Hit pause right now.
Just real
On this, and go look up. Yeah, for sure. And it's been so good. I mean, for me, like, it's important for me to learn, like, because I get super into something, like full gas, and I learn, I'm like, that's amazing. And then something else will walk by, and I'm like, ooh, that. I want to learn that now. So that's been my kind of hustle since I was a kid. And I love it. What's happening, everybody? Today, we have a special guest on the show. He is in studio. He drove up from his place in Los Angeles. We're going to talk a lot about real estate investing, and kind of just what it feels like to punt your fears and to just move to a totally different country. And I have Reed Goossens with me in studio. Welcome, Reed.
G'day, mate. How's it going?
Super, super well. So, funny backstory about how I met Reed was one of my old partners that I was going to write the book with is like, hey, you got to meet this guy. His name's Reed. He's awesome. He's got this great podcast. And real long story short, we never met. We never connected. The book got wrote. He was supposed to be part of the book. That partnership and relationship imploded. And then 2 years later, I see Reed at an event in Nashville for real estate investors.
Right.
And I was like, oh, shit, there's Reed. And he's like, he was the one who was in charge of the show. He was emceeing it. And I was like, this is going to be great.
Mate, I had the same person I think we're talking about. We won't name
Yeah.
names, but
Yes.
yeah, it was a long time coming. All this awesomeness. I actually heard about 100 Doors through him.
Yeah.
So when we did eventually meet, I was like, you're the other side of the story. And I love the name 100 Doors. And when we finally got to connect, it was pretty special. So I didn't even know about you until you came up and said, hey, man, I'm Dane Carter. I'm like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm the other guy with for 100 Doors. I'm like, boom.
And then it all started to click, right? And
Yep.
it was so funny because I'd listened to, I don't know, probably 10 or 20 of your podcasts. And I was like, oh, this guy's great. I like his vibe. I and I liked your message about you can do it.
Right.
Like anybody can do it. So walk us through, kind of how you were as a kid, and then where that fire came from, and then how and when you decided to just move to the U.S.
Right. Well, as a kid, how do we start? So I always ask, like, how to make a first ever dollar as a kid. And I was always, it's a great question to start any podcast with because you can get to gauge the person on, were they silver spoon in the mouth or were they, grinder? And I definitely came from the grinder. My parents were both teachers, state school teachers. I went to school. My dad was a deputy principal, so I always had to be in line. I never really acted out. But I think the legal age in Australia was 14 years of age to start working. And I'd written my name on a piece of paper and my parents' telephone number and go down to the local store. And I got a little job working. I think it was 4 hours a week, two mornings, Saturday, Sunday, setting up at a cafe. And that was my first job. And that, steamrolled all holidays through school, through university, either on construction sites or just hustling and really understanding the value of a dollar. And that's, I then went to university for structural engineering. Was wanting to be a vet. I rode horses for many, many years. And you might think, oh, he's riding horses. And my parents were very humble. We didn't come for money, but we had a little farm and loved horse riding. And that responsibility at a young age, definitely, got to get up, got to make sure the animals are fed, that sort of stuff made that grind, I guess, and always not being afraid to roll up the sleeves and make it happen. And if you ever, my parents always instilled in me that a fool and their money are easily parted. So always try and understand the value of a dollar. And it wasn't until later in life that I understood about real estate, and we'll get into that. But early on, it was very much like go out and make it happen for yourself. We're not here to give you money. If you want to, spend money on yourself, then go out and earn it.
Good luck.
Exactly.
And as you guys know, that sounds very similar to my backstory.
Right.
I was raised really, really poor, and I started working at 12 because there was no other way. Like if I wanted it, I had to go get it. Very similar to your parents. Right. And some people might be out there going, I could never have my little Johnny or Susie working. No, do that.
Yeah, 100%.
It creates something like that's undescribable within you. When you're handed everything in life and then life punches you in the face for the first time, it'll level you.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of used to it and somewhat expect it, you kind of spit it out on the ground and keep moving.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So for me, you're actually doing a disservice to your children.
100%. I remember that I think it was 15 years old. It was school holidays. I went and worked at a horse thoroughbred spelling complex, and the owner of the complex wanted to build a 25-meter Olympic swimming pool for his kid, who was also 15, right? And I was being the offsider labourer to this guy tying rebar, and the Australian summer, you're down whatever it is, 12 feet because of the pool's really deep, no wind, and just sweating my balls off because it was. And I remember going home the first day after a 12-hour day and saying, Dad, just tell him I've fallen off, I've broken my back, or I've broken. I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. But then in 2 months later, I had a couple of grand saved up because it was 6 days, 12 to 15 hours a day at $15 an hour, which is really good for a 15-year-old, and I got to pay for the fun I wanted to have and the shenanigans with my friends, on my own. But I vividly remember that story going, I can't go back tomorrow, and starting at 5 a.m. But it builds. The bruising, it builds the calluses on the hands to make you want that more. And really, my dad always said to me, he was like, look, you need to understand the power of being educated and having an education. So having these roles of labouring and tying rebar and mixing concrete and jobs that for anyone out there, no offense to those jobs, but making sure you were then switched on at school because you wanted to get the best grades, because I didn't want to have to do that for the rest of my life and do backbreaking work. That was not. I tasted it. I was like, hell no. But I'm good. So I'm going to go and try really hard to go to university and all that other sort of stuff. So
it's fantastic. And again, that speaks to his parents, and that speaks to you as a person today, because I guarantee that the person you are today versus the kid who is getting the swimming pool built for him, just from a character standpoint, and I'm judging here, but I'm sorry, I'm going to, are probably very different.
100%.
And your views on the world are probably very different.
Exactly.
Here's something I've never talked about on this podcast, and your story literally triggered it, is when I was 15, I went to go and stay with my dad for a summer. And I'm not close to my dad. He would drive me to the job site because he was a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
He was a developer. And he would drive me to the job site in his really nice Mercedes and then drop me off at 5:30 in the morning with a bunch of construction workers. And it was a church, and we had to demo the church and rebuild it and curbs and everything, because I had to make a certain amount of money that he told me he was going to match to buy my first car. So I went down there and worked my face off for 2 months at 15. And I had probably once a day your thought of, I'm not going back tomorrow, no matter what. A couple times I was carrying pallets of roof shingles up to the roof when it was 110 in inland San Diego. Probably not quite as hot as Australia hot, but still warm.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm going to just fall 9 feet. I'm just going to jump off and pretend like I got hurt or something, because I didn't want to go back the next day.
Right.
But I never quit. Every day I wanted to quit at some point. It could be the last part, and I'm rolling up hose and I'm doing something and I'm sunburnt and I'm tired because I had to take the bus home. That was part of my thing. So I took the bus for 2 hours back because he was still at work.
Right.
And it did something to me. And I was just like, and he never gave me half the money for the car. So I ended up selling weed to get the money for the other half. But I figured it out, and I didn't quit.
Right.
So what you just spoke to was, just don't quit. And then if it'll really frame where you're going to, school's very important. Mm-hmm. And if you do that job, you're going to study harder.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So it was a gift your parents gave you. It didn't feel like a gift.
Right. But it's also over the years when I've got into, after finishing school, getting into structural engineering and getting into a day job in corporate world, which also is a pain in the ass, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But always understanding, and in hindsight, what are the skills that you can take away, or the lessons
100%
to then make you to be that next stepping stone to get wherever you're going to go. And when you're 15, you don't have no idea. But now that looking back on life,
it's hindsight, right?
It's hindsight, right? Yeah. But having those stepping stones, so every job okay, I've got to take this job because I've got to pay for my kid's school or whatever it is. But I need to use this job to create a skill that I can then put in that next stepping stone in front of me to move forward. And then the next job, it's always try and take something out of it, and never try and go into a job if you have to go into a job, like thinking, oh, screw this, I just want to never want to do it ever again. But it's like, what's the value you can squeeze out of it, like squeezing a juice, a lemon, I should say.
But it's such an incredible mindset to have. You're like, here's this skill set that I'm going to try to learn. I'm going to try to learn something to catapult me to the next phase.
Right.
Or like, who am I going to meet?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I meet this person that takes me as their mentor, and it changes the whole trajectory of my life.
Right.
So like those little things have happened to me, but I didn't realize them then.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the value of getting a little older, is you can kind of connect those dots and you're like, if I hadn't have met him through that awful job or that stupid lawsuit, I wouldn't be where I'm at now.
Right.
So it's the power of staying positive and staying wildly optimistic that you're not always driving. Like, you're in the car and you might have your hands on the steering wheel, but you might not always be 100% driving.
I completely agree.
So that's awesome. Okay, so, and a sidebar for all you structural engineers out there, they make incredible real estate investors. I know a lot of them. Reed's one of them. So you're at 15 and you're digging out a pool for some rich kid's house, and you're thinking, I got to triple down on school.
Yep.
So then what?
So originally was going to get into become a veterinarian. Was not, didn't quite have it was like the top score you needed to get, but really still loved mathematics. And my dad was a mathematics teacher. Got pretty good, top 5% of scores, and that got me into civil engineering. And loved studying civil engineering. Did 4 years at University of Queensland. It was definitely going to college was coming out of the shell. Being at school where my dad was the deputy principal, I was sort of, not that I wanted to go and rebel, but it was like that little bit of the shackles were on, and I wanted to make sure I impress him because I'm the product of him, so I need to hold the family name.
That's
all
right.
that
That's
sort of
right.
stuff. So went to college and was like, wow, like girls and
freedom.
Yeah, booze. Like what? I remember being a little bit intoxicated at like 17 for the first time. Like it was a little bit later in life. So that was a really awesome experience. Met so many different like-minded people who just thought differently, and it really was growing up between 17 and 18, my first year of university. Grew up a lot, got a bug to wanting to go travel, finished my university at 21 with honours, loved it, then went straight into, was working. Part of what you have to do is work for a professional engineer before you graduate. Is sort of study with an engineer, credits and all that sort of stuff. Then said to that engineering company, "Hey, I don't want to live here in Australia anymore. I want to go overseas. I want to, I know you got offices in London. Let me go." And this was 2008. I said, "I'll figure the visa out. You just have a job for me waiting in London." And it was a 2012 building for the 2012 Olympic Games. So got on a plane, went to Peru, South America, backpacking for a little bit of time.
Nice.
And then flew up to London, had about 18 months in London, and then the visa ended. And again, another incredible experience we could talk about for hours. But wasn't really ready to go home. And this was where a buddy of mine who had studied with, he said, "You got to come to the south of France. You need to do this course, and you can work on the super yachts for the mega wealthy as a deckhand."
Perfect.
And I was like, "What the hell's a deckhand? I'm not ready to go home. Let's go gallivant around the south of France." So
it's beautiful
anyway,
down there.
Rock up with 800 euros in my pocket, staying in hostels. Every morning I'd boil 2 eggs. I'd wake up and walk the docks and like, "Hey, any day work, any day work, any day work, any day work." And there's no. One yes. That one yes was 100 euros for the day, free lunch. So that got me that day. And I was working maybe 3 or 4 days a week until I then got, about 6 months into it, I got a job on my mate's yacht. Incredible experience of my life, working, definitely worked for a Russian oligarch. Like it was that sort of intense where no one on board was allowed to know how to speak Russian. That's sort of how, yeah. At the time I didn't know any of this sort of stuff, but it's just super incredible experience. Really that resolve of like, keep going, and then getting that little 100 euros a day that turns into 3 days worth of work, that turns into 7 days worth of work. Oh, you can now stay in the south of France for an extended period of time, because I was literally just living out of my backpack. Got a full-time job, loved it, all the rest of it, but I also had gone to school. And it was back to that sort of manual labor that I was like, this is great living in essentially in a fishbowl, but in Monaco and all that sort of stuff, but I want to use my brain.
But you got it out of your system.
Got it out of my system.
Right.
Got it out of my system. But one of the most incredible things was the yacht. For those people that don't know, in the winter in Europe, all the yachts head to Fort Lauderdale here in the States. So I crossed the Atlantic Ocean on this yacht. I think it was like 12 days at sea. It was, I definitely realized I'm not a seafaring bloke.
You're like, not for me.
Yeah. They say the biggest thing that the best treatment to seasickness is an oak tree because it's on land.
That's right.
And then, so cut in that whole, and it's a long way around for the story, but in that time in the south of France, I actually met my now wife, Erica.
Oh, cool.
So we met back in 2009, kept in contact, finished off the yachting thing, backpacked around America, fell in love with New York, knew that I needed to live in the States for a period of time, went back to Australia for a couple of years, got back into civil engineering, structural engineering, had a long distance relationship with Erica. She just somehow applied for university in Australia. And I said, let's date. And at that same time, picked up the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Me too.
I'm fast forwarding through a lot here because I know we only got a short period of time. But anyway, come over 2 years, went to my first real estate networking event, and then in early 2012, quit my job in Australia, 6 figures, and moved halfway across the world and didn't have a job into New York City, which we're coming full circle now to.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah, we're knocking on the doors. So yeah.
So do you think that you had the courage to do that because of the time you spent in Europe? And you're like, I just hopped in a backpack with $800
Yep.
and left. So you knew it was already possible.
Knew it was already possible.
Right? Because because you'd experienced it.
100%.
You knew what it felt like to go somewhere with €800 and a backpack and know that you have a skill set to make it happen.
Yeah. Exactly, and it was about network. I learned the power of networking. I learned the power of, rubbing shoulders with someone. And I remember going down and getting it. My first job in the south of France was literally having a rosé at the bar with someone's like, oh, I need someone to come around tomorrow to help wash my boat. I'll pay €100 for it. I'll do it. It was just hungry enough to do it. And be in the right place at the right time.
And being humble enough to just do it.
Yeah.
But still having enough self-worth and self-confidence to know you can. That's why school is so important. Right. I don't want to discount school. It's really important. Your life experience coupled with that can be a game changer for you.
100%.
Because those experiences really go into your young adulthood. Mm-hmm. You would have probably never had the confidence to say, I'm moving to New York. I'm going to punt my 6-figure job at home where it's warm and comfortable and everything's
family,
normal,
network.
Everything's
there
for this dream.
Right.
And that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm telling you, it does something to you.
It put it in a way that I always say to people that after coming back from being overseas for 2 years, I had that sort of grounding moment of oh my gosh, I can't just be sitting in this cubicle for the next 40 years of my life. Love studying civil engineering, but practicing it was a little bit different. And I felt like a star athlete sitting on the sidelines and watching my life, a basketball game of life just go by. Mm-hmm. How do I grab it by the balls and be like, I want to control it? Now, it's taken me many years to get to financial freedom. Mm-hmm. And it included moving to the United States. But I knew that the worst case scenario would have been, okay, so I moved to the United States. It didn't happen. I moved back to Australia.
And get another 6-figure job.
And you get another 6-figure job. What's...
Woe is me.
Yeah, it's... At least I will have the confidence knowing that when I wake up when I'm 60, I know that I gave it a go. I gave it a crack. I say it a lot. I give it a crack. Yeah. And so the unfulfilled potential scares me most than failure.
Agreed.
That is 100% what I live by.
That has been my launching point for so many things where I'm like, I am petrified. Mm-hmm. So I definitely need to do this.
Right.
Because I don't want to have those regrets.
Right.
It scares me to death. And that was a big reason why we started a podcast. We put out a book. We did a website. We started branding. It was out of fear. So sometimes fear can be a healthy fear that actually scares you into the right direction, or it can keep you stuck. Mm-hmm. It's on the opposite for you, which is rad. It just, here we go.
Throw it to the wind and see what happens.
Because what's your plan B? Incredible still.
Right.
It's still great. Even your plan C and D is still good.
And not necessarily having a plan B, it also, sometimes having a plan B is a safety net.
Agreed.
And so you don't then go and push that.
And you don't go all in. No, I agree.
You don't go all in. So it's sort of like, oh, well, I've got this plan B. I'm just going to go do that. Plan A didn't work. I tried it. Oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Mm-hmm. And so having plan B can sometimes be counterintuitive at the same time.
I completely agree. So you come here. You get really fired up on real estate.
Yep. Well, already fired up coming to the United States.
Right, that's right.
So I was going to do something in Aussie, lease options, flip, that we have the same things. in Australia, maybe just not, we'll get into it a little bit in multifamily stuff, but moving to the United States, like I thought Australia had networking opportunities. Wow. Moving to New York City, 2 weeks fresh off the boat, it was networking on steroids.
It is.
These fast-paced Americans talking about cap rates and cash-on-cash returns and duplexes and multifamily. I'm like, what the hell is, what's a credit score, an LLC? So I had to really quickly learn the lingo of the land. And I think within 6 months of moving here, the biggest thing was like, I can buy a duplex for $38,000. What the hell? Like in Australia, you could not find anything for $38,000.
Right, because when you came here in 2009?
2012.
2012. So the Australian currency was still really strong.
Still really strong, but just in general, the fundamentals of like having, and we can talk about this, is like America's what, 400 million people. You can live or occupy north to east coast, east to west coast, north to south. There's not really uninhabitable land in the United States. In Australia, we can only inhabit 18% of our land. So that forces a lot of people around major cities. You're landlocked. Prices go through the roof. Think of LA market across the entire country.
Yeah, no thank you.
And we only have 24 million people.
That's right.
So you don't, when you have the sheer volume that you guys have here in America, it stems these class B and C and even D markets, but people just need somewhere to live, right?
That's right.
And it's cheaper, and you can go find a house for $38,000. And I found one 4 hours of drive from New York City.
Isn't that crazy? Like
it was nuts.
It's literally like $38,000 to lease a place for 6 months in the city,
right?
Or you can go buy something 4 hours,
right,
and have it for the rest of your life. Exactly.
And it was look. In paper, it was fantastic. Learnt really quickly about Section 8, and on paper worked really well for 6 months, and then just went to shit.
Yeah, I get
it. And what I learnt really quickly, looking back on it, anyone getting involved in turnkeys and all that sort of stuff is, I was banging on the door of my property manager. Why haven't you got so and so rented? And I'm like, they make $8. 8% a month on like whatever it is, $1,000. They're not really going to pay me a lot of attention when I have one property. And at the time I had no idea about this, but it was sort of
like, I hired you as the manager.
Yeah, it's like, man, you pay me $80 a month. Like,
come on,
go pound sand.
That's right.
I'll get someone in there when I get someone in there.
That's right.
And so the looking back, if you do go down if anyone listening to this is thinking about doing turnkeys or something like that, try and do it with a little bit of volume. 3 to 7, just so you can attract a little bit more from your property manager, because it really does make or break.
It can make a big difference.
Yeah.
And so what we started to do probably 3 years ago is, and this is a little more advanced, but at the same time it doesn't have to be, we'll go find brand new real estate agents that are just hungry, that want to get in the game, and we'll have them manage some of our smaller deals until they kind of get their feet wet.
Right.
But now we have boots on the ground in that city, and now we're bringing in money, and they're going to get the deals, they can write the offers, and now they're the property management arm of the thing. So, and we discovered that's pretty easy to do, especially now with social media.
Right.
So, but it's really difficult. It's the hardest thing in real estate to find really good property management.
Yep.
And the best are the best for a reason, and the worst are the worst for a reason, and everything in between. Because I don't care if it's a $38,000 asset or a $38 million asset. The same principles apply.
100%.
And the same amount of risk and the same amount of work sometimes can apply. So your first deal went a little sideways. Did you sell it? Did you keep it?
Yeah,
what happened?
So what happened was credit score. No idea. Fresh off the boat. No one was going to lend to me. So I went all in on this property, and then I went and created a relationship with a local bank, a credit union bank. I opened up an account, and that I just deposited checks. Like so for the first 6 to 7 months, it was, hey, there's checks coming in, and I think I was all in for like $50K, including renovations and closing costs and all that sort of stuff. So after about 6 months, I went back to them and said, hey, look, you can see the history of rental deposits. We've got deposits from the tenants. Like, this is working, right? Can I have 60% of my money to go buy another one? And they said, we won't give you 60% of your money. We'll just give you a line of credit. If you want to go buy another house, you just put it up as collateral and you go buy another house.
Easy.
That's what I did. The second one was a lot better. It was never going to go lofty highs of appreciation, but it was an ATM.
It was income coming in every month.
$1,200, and these were again back to immigrant families.
They're the best.
They are the best. They just want to pay, and they don't want to. They're rough-friendly feathers. They just want to pay.
They don't be messed with.
And they was paying on time, and it was this other Section 8 that was causing me issues. I had these 2 properties. I think I had a third one I bought because I just saved some money from my job, and then my buddy was like, oh, that's right. And I was also then going to start, I did a flip in Philadelphia, which being a structural engineer, I was doing these row houses, and you talk about size. Like I remember being a structural engineer, and you could have a townhome or a 50-story building, and it's still just as much work, in terms of client relationship and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I was working for a structural engineering firm in New York that did a lot of value add in terms of these row houses. You come put an extra story on, or you gut it and whatsoever. I found exactly the same thing in Philadelphia for a fraction of the cost. It was a 2-story next to a 3-story. I could put the 3rd story on. What I didn't look at was in hindsight, it should have worked, but sometimes just things just all go to shit at once.
It doesn't matter. Yep, that's going to happen.
But we put on the 3rd story. I did all the structural engineering drawings. We put on a rooftop deck. But what ended up happening was we ended up taking over from the general contractor. He stole from us, blah, blah, blah. It ended up going south. We bought it for like 110. We thought we were going to put 180 into it. We ended up putting probably 230 into it. And we only sold it for 380. So it wasn't. And I think when I paid my dad, who was an investor, back his money plus his interest, and the fact that we had carried costs for 18 months because it took
a long time.
I thought it was only going to take 6 to 12, and we'd be done in and out. We missed the cycle in terms of the summer, and it was just it was a very good lesson of like, now if that ARV was 450 to 500,
it's worth the risk.
It would have been worth the risk.
Agreed.
But it was just not that. But we sold it within 30 days. So like clearly it was marketed, it was priced correctly.
Correct.
It was just that it took that longer period of time. So with all that being said, I had to try flipping, doing some buy and holds, and then my buddy came down from Canada and was telling me about who I'd studied with back at University of Queensland. He's like, man, I just bought a 70-unit property, and I was like, 70? 70? He's like, yeah, 70. Yeah. Like, how the hell did you do that? And he's like, well, I got a seller carryback note, and I was like, what the hell is a seller carryback note? The best. And I got me and my 2 buddies and my parents put in $100,000 each, and we got a down payment, and that's how we did it. And I was like, this is nuts. And I was like, who taught you this? I talked about a mentor, and all through that, there's the power of OPM, other people's money.
That's
this
right.
is in 2013. And that really lit the fire to go and get involved in syndication, which is now what I do today. And if anyone meets me in an elevator, 7 years now. 7 years being in the United States, going from $38,000 to I now personally control. This is not to brag, but about $100 million worth of US multifamily, and I came here without no network, didn't go to school here, didn't have family here, and I'm an example. I had a job and then quit the job, find financial freedom, and so if I can do it, coming from Australia, people who are listening to this show, sitting on the fence, get the hell off the fence and make it happen.
Get here. And he left his girlfriend at home. He left
She came with.
Remember, she did come with. Okay.
You're married, right? Remember.
That's right.
The 2 things I moved for was my wife, Erica. But the beauty of moving to the United States is like a lot of people got to go through green cards and all this sort of stuff. Australia has a very good relationship with the United States, and I could get a work permit, which meant I didn't have to force the issue of marriage. We only got married actually 18 months ago, and we've been together since 2009.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
But it's possible.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter what your circumstances are. He didn't come from this wealthy background, but most people, let's just call it most people, after the $38,000 house that was Section 8, a little bit of a pain in the ass, you'd have been like, I might not be into this real estate thing like I thought I was. And then you use your degree, which is engineering to build up, to put the 3rd story and the rooftop deck, and it didn't quite pencil the way you wanted it to, you still didn't stop. Like, sometimes it takes a couple punches in the face.
It does. I know I didn't lose my shirt on the buy and holds. I made all my money back, and then obviously the cash flow. On the flip, I personally lost money, but that was because I promised my investors. This was my first time into other people's money, and
more returns.
I said, look, I promised you a return. I'm gonna man up to that, and so it came out of my pocket, and I didn't lose my shirt. Yeah, but I personally lost a little bit of money. Hey, it's a big lesson.
It's a big lesson, and then Fast forward, you guys just closed a great building in Austin.
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, we've got
It's one of the hottest cities in the country.
We've got 1,100 units now, and I was just in Houston last week and San Antonio and Austin looking for the next one. We try to do a deal a quarter deal, and when I say deal, looking between 200 to 300 units at any one deal.
That's awesome. I love San Antonio right now.
Yeah,
it's great. So, walk us through why syndication makes sense to you.
Yep.
Everybody can be afraid of syndications. It doesn't need to be a big scary animal, and how you can basically syndicate anything.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. You can syndicate anything.
That's right. It's
not multifamily or mobile home parks or this huge commercial asset. Like, think of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. It was an idea. He pitched. He wasn't sitting on a pile of money. He went out and raised money from other people because he had a really good idea. The same can go from single-family flipping. I know many people who use, actually in San Antonio, who flip single-family houses and use other people's monies to do it. What it does, it's a vehicle for two things. It's a vehicle for finance, and it's a vehicle for investors to get their money working. And it's actually a third thing. It's a vehicle for the business owner to scale quickly.
That's right.
And that is the pure essence of it. It's a win-win for everyone. The business owner, as me, can use other people's money to leverage their business and accelerate. And those people who are sitting on the sideline who may not have the time nor the energy to go out and find those Kraken deals, as I like to say, can get their money working for them in an investment that's backed by real estate. It's a hard asset. They get all the tax depreciation benefits of it, cash flow appreciation, amortization, all those good things I'm sure you've talked about too, and more on this show. But it's right now yes, the stock market is doing really well right now, but there's going to be a crash. And from a long-term point of view, real estate is honestly the best investment. And the beauty about real estate, it's across the world.
It's everywhere. And I tell people the same thing, like, I will always invest in real estate as long as people want to live inside.
Right.
You don't have to go to dinner. You don't have to buy fancy clothes.
Right.
You have to live not have to live inside. Most people want to.
Right.
So I love that fact. And it's a win-win for everybody. I think, personally, because I've been in this game for a little while, I think people get so stuck in the fact that money is money and not a tool.
Yes.
So they look at it with emotion.
Yes.
Not the math. I just look at the math. Metrics.
Right.
Very simple.
Right.
Here's the math. Here's the property. Here's the hard asset. Your money is protected by this. If I decide to just piss off and go to Vegas and, whatever,
your money's still there.
Your money's still there.
Yeah.
I didn't take it with me.
Yeah.
So it's very well protected, which is the reason why I have zero money in the stock market unless I sit on a board. I have to hold it for a certain amount of time. But because I can sell it when I want. We can put terms in place to refi, to get, it doesn't matter.
Leverage.
We
haven't talked about leverage.
Leverage is the greatest thing ever.
Right.
And you can make moves.
Right.
Like, I don't have money in stocks where I don't have control over what they do. So many people hand somebody $500,000 and just hope they're good at their job. To me, that's insane. But that's all I knew growing up, right? It was like, give your money to a mutual fund or invest it in the stock market.
Right.
And on my 30th birthday, I took everything out and got into real estate.
Wow.
And man, am I glad I did. Because it changed everything. Now, walk us into leverage a little bit so everybody can see why syndications make sense and then why good leverage is so incredible to scale.
Yep. So we haven't talked about leverage. Okay, so syndication is a form of leverage, right? You're leveraging someone else's money to help you put a down payment down.
That's right.
Let's break it down into a $100,000 property. You need $20,000 down. You don't have $20,000, but you found this really awesome deal. So you might go, hey, Andy, I know you got 20 grand. I found this really cool deal. Do you want to maybe split the profits 50-50 when we do it? So I'm leveraging, you're like, oh man, I'm in a job. I don't know what's the risks here. How do I trust you? Well, it's a real estate. I'm walking through all this sort of stuff. That's a leverage there. So I've already leveraged your money, right? But then I go to the bank and say, hey bank, well, I don't want to buy this 100%. I want to buy it with some leverage in place. Low interest rates. A single family house, 3 to 4%. It's cheaper money than me paying you. Essentially what I'm going to pay you at the end when we split the profits, right?
That's right.
So there's different types of leverage, and we can get into what's called capital stack. But there's the bank, who usually sits in first position, and then you have on commercial assets you can have things called mezzanine debt. It's really just, and then you have equity, and that equity can be split up between some of your equity as the business owner / flipper or whatever the term you want to call it, developer. And you may bring on some investors as well to share in the spoils because you are not sitting on a pile of cash.
That's right.
And that is really the different types of leverage that are involved in a simple real estate deal. I mean, it obviously gets more complicated the bigger deals you do. But at the end of the day, if you keep it simple, stupid in terms of, okay, I need down payment, I need money to do X, Y, Z to this property, who is wanting to come on board with me to partner as a partnership and benefit from the journey that we're going on with this particular piece of real estate. I always like to look at it as like a plane. Like if I wanted to try and get a plane by myself to hire a Boeing 747 to get from LA to New York, it'd cost me a shit ton of money, right? However, I can go and split that up with 300 people, right? And I'm talking about buying, this is a very high end. I'm the pilot and I'll have my business partner as a co-pilot. In first class, you might have key principals, people who are worth a lot of money, who can bring bank balances to the table,
That's right.
liquidity, all this sort of stuff. And then you got back and coach all the investors who just want to come along.
They want
to come along for the ride. They want to enjoy the in-flight entertainment. And we can all get from Los Angeles to New York in a Boeing 747, enjoy the journey, and at a fraction of the cost because we've split the cost up between all of us. And that is the best analogy I've ever heard talking about syndication.
I completely agree. And I've actually heard that. And I think it's perfect because it's basically what it is.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be as scary as people think. And if you're a good person, and I always say this and I always like to preface it, if you're a good person, this makes sense for you. You have good morals. You know you're trying to help. You're a facilitator. You're a really good operator. This is probably for you. If you are a scumbag, this will expose you and you will go down in flames.
Right.
So I always tell people this is the greatest thing ever. Just over-vet the operator.
Right. Right. And we're talking probably more specifically towards a commercial asset.
Yes, of course.
But the good thing about commercial assets is that you are dealing in the big boy league.
That's right.
When there's more money to go around, there's more lawsuits that can happen.
That's right.
So as a group of investors, if you get screwed or whatever, well, hey, there's 30 of investors. If you're 40 investors, we're going to come after the operator. So make sure that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And also as an investor, getting involved in a syndication is like any real estate, right? There's going to be risks.
There is.
And sometimes the operator can't control those risks, right?
Of course not.
You have another 2008.
I didn't see it coming.
I didn't see it coming.
I couldn't predict it.
If I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be in real estate.
That's right. That's right.
So as a passive investor in a real estate syndication, you really want to make sure that you're vetting the operator. Have they got track record? Are they credible? What sort of risks mitigators are they putting into their underwriting or into the deal? And we could talk a whole episode about that. But making sure that you understand. And I think the biggest thing as a passive investor, you need to be of certain knowledge about real estate investing before going and getting involved. I wouldn't recommend to people listening to this show, if you're just starting out, don't go get involved in the syndication just yet. Learn the ropes, understand how to squeeze an operator and push their buttons so you get the right answers. And then once you think, okay, I've got all the information, I'm going to make a sound assessment. Yes or no, I'm going to move forward with this deal.
That's right.
And that's really about it.
And it doesn't take long to establish a good track record when you get started. I mean, it is like a snowball. Right. Once you do one, here's the secret of people with money. You make them money, they tell their friends.
Right.
And then their friends want to put in money. I would say most of our investors are doctors, lawyers, chiropractors, people that have a professional practice where, to your point earlier, they don't have time. You don't have time to go search for these deals. You don't have time to go do all this stuff. It's very labor and time intensive. You're a syndicator. It takes an ungodly amount of time, energy, just to find the deals.
Right.
And then you got to put them together, put the syndication together. Operators get every penny they deserve.
Yep.
It's a lot of work. No, absolutely. And you do. Because the money's the easy part. Like the deal
is the hard part.
And I tell everybody all the time, you don't have a money problem. You have a deal problem.
Right.
I can't get any money in real estate. You need more deals.
Yeah. And you need to be looking at so many more deals. Like, Grant Cardone with a 10X sort of thing. I remember the first deal I did myself. I think I underwrote like 60 or 70 different large multifamilies. I'm talking, this is over 100 units. So across 2 different markets, that's how many deals I had to underwrite in order to get my first one done.
That's a ton.
It's a lot of work. I hired interns and all at knowing that I would get there one day, but just, spending $30, $40 an hour for them to underwrite more deals for me. So I knew that it was just a function of deals. Back to that, when I was working at the docks in the south of France, that one yes will change the rest of your life. So you've got to go and unearth or turn over every stone, and you'll shake the tree, and an apple will fall down eventually.
And I love what you said. That one yes will change your life.
Right.
And sometimes people stop that one boat slip before they were going to get the yes.
Exactly.
They stop before the magic happens.
Yep.
And it's so sad to watch.
And I think it's just a little bit, I don't want to go on forever, but the whole mindset when you start out in real estate, right? There's a lot of spruikers out there. Oh, you can get financially free in 2 years. It took me probably 6. And
you were going full gas.
And I was going full gas, right? That's to be comfortable, replace my income sort of stuff. You have to, if you don't have the right mindset on the front end, if you think you're going to get it done in 2 years, it may not take 2 years. It may take 7. And that's okay, right? It might take 10.
Who cares? 10 years, big deal.
Right. But the fact is that if you don't have that right time horizon, you get to the end of 2 years. If you started with 2 years and you're like, oh, 2 years, I haven't got it.
Do you know how fast 2 years goes by?
Yeah, I know. But someone said to me the other day, it's like, and even to myself, like nowadays when I'm like, looking to 2,000, 3,000 units, and it's just sort of like, hustle. When you're 80 and you're talking to your grandkids, does it really matter if you have 2,000 units in 2018 or 2020? And it does. And now, as I've got to a financial freedom, I'm now a business owner. How do I then manage my priorities and goals? And there's a whole dynamic around that, which as an entrepreneur you learn.
Absolutely.
Right? And I know with you with kids, it
is.
Yeah, it's a thing that you got to balance, right?
I don't want these little scumbags running around. So it's important for me to make sure that they get like the right stuff and someone to lead by example. I could tell my kids, tell them blue in the face something. They're going to do what I show them to do. Like they learn by how I handle myself. 100%. That's what I literally say to my 3-year-old all the time, because everything my 5.5-year-old does, monkey C does right after. So, but that speaks to who they are. I made a conscious choice before I met my wife because of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And I didn't have kids yet. I wasn't married yet. I knew I was going to be home early. I knew I was going to coach all their teams, and I had no idea how I was going to do it.
Right.
But I
made a commitment.
I declared it that I wasn't going to have my children raised the same way I was. Not a big statement, but like that was it. So when my son was born, I had 19 properties in escrow. He came a month early, and I was like, Jackson, don't come. Like, just give me a month. We're almost closed. But sure enough, and it let me know, I'm going to move my office home because they're, young, and that's what I did. And then I've grown. And just your life is going to constantly be moving. And to your point, when I'm 80 and I'm looking back and I'm like, do I really care if I had 520 million or 460? Because I decided to punt $80 million in my 40s to be home early? No, I don't care.
Right.
I don't.
Right.
Because I can't get that part back.
Yep.
So, dude, I love your journey. I love your path. I love all the stuff you're doing out of state too, because we're both here in Southern California. We're like, you want to talk about compressed cap rates. It's a joke. But where I got stuck, and maybe we'll actually talk about this a little bit, where I got stuck is my first few mentors were like old salty dogs. They were like real estate diehards. You can't even bring them anything that's not real estate for them to invest in. But they had the mindset of not investing outside of where they live because of their mentors and so on and so forth. 2019, it makes sense to invest in other places in the country.
Yeah, it does. Look, there's not deals here.
There
is in any market. It's hot in Austin, it's hot in San Antonio, it's hot in Dallas, it's hot in all the markets I'm looking at. Right. So
yes.
So it's hot across the country. It is summer 2019, and something's happening. Right.
That's right.
There is definitely a canary in the coal mine in terms of what I've been seeing. In the deals where I've been underwriting this first quarter.
Agreed.
But back to your point about investing out of state, the reason that you will go and invest out of state is so you can get cash flow, right? Income to support, to help you get towards that financial goal, whatever that number might be. So talk about rent vesting. I'm sure you've talked about a lot about that. Buy where it makes sense, rent where you want to live. Look, at the end of the day, it's going to be a learning curve. You've got to get out of there, get boots on the ground. You probably have to fly there a few times, pick a market. Once you pick that market, you need to underwrite 30 to 50 deals in that market to understand what's going
the
on.
market.
Right. Like what's, one of the beauty things I talk about in my book as well is that the US, they always talk about the US market, right? And it's like the United States has
massive.
400 metropolitan statistical areas. And inside each MSA, there's a north, south, east, west. Within each one of those quadrants, there's a right side of the tracks and a wrong side of the tracks. And if you're, one block away from the school, you're better than, there's all these nuances that now, yes, granted, being out of state is harder. You have to learn, do more desktop studies, and that's why people go back to that. Oh, I'm just going to invest in my backyard because I can see it and I know it. Yeah, it's 2019. Get on a plane.
Get on a plane. I can fly
to Google Maps.
And that's the thing, too, is there's so many tools we have now. I can run an ad in wherever. I can even go to hashtags on Instagram for people that are videographers. They could go for $100 in like somewhere like in PayPal will go shoot photos of a property, upload them to Dropbox for me. There's so many things you can do.
Right.
I can fly from Los Angeles. I don't have to be all fancy. I can fly on Spirit or wherever, fly to Cleveland. I can stay at like an Embassy Suites. I get nice hot breakfast in the morning, have my little cheap rental car, drive 20 deals, sit with my property managers, do whatever I need to do, look, underwrite deals, get into the city to know why this borough is better than this borough on the east side, and just understand the city, how it works. And then fly back 3 days later for like $500.
And it's all tax write-off.
All tax write-off. Like, you don't have to fly on a private jet to go vet deals. Like, you can do, like I'm telling you, if you make $40,000 a year, you can do this. And you go get in the game. And you buy a duplex for $48,000 that might be fully occupied. You don't do anything, and you're going to make $400 or $500 a month in like a little bit of income. Feel what that feels like, and then do another one.
Right.
And then do a bigger one. Because once you speak the language, you spoke the language.
And that it's all education at the end of the day, right? It's an investment in yourself. So spending the $500, I don't know if I want to fly Spirit and spend time away from my kids, but it's that stepping stone. In the green room before we spoke about earlier in the show about putting taking skills from a business, right, and from a job, and using that as a stepping stone. Going and looking at a market and spending the money, it's an investment. You may not actually buy anything in that
even
market.
if you don't go to that market,
right?
Now don't go to that market,
right? You're so much more. I was there, and there's just no growth, and there's no jobs coming, and all this sort of stuff, no population growth, blah blah blah. Affordable, but the reason it's affordable because no one wants to bloody live there, right?
That's right.
And so you'll get knowledgeable, and through that knowledge is power, and that is where you can start to say, okay, I'm going to make smart investing decisions rather than someone said my Uncle Joe said that this is really good over here in wherever it is.
Watch out for Uncle Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Uncle Joe might not have your best interest, and it's all about breaking out of your comfort zone, which gives you the confidence. Even if you get on a plane, you have no idea what you're going to do when you land. When you fly home, you'll have more intel than when you were sitting at your house.
Right.
It's fun.
Right.
Like, real estate is fun. Getting to cities is fun. I go and I start knocking on doors like a weirdo. I'm like, hey, I'm a real estate investor in this area. How long have you lived here? You'd be surprised how many people would be like, oh, I'm 6th generation. I've lived here forever. You know what I mean? People want to talk. And I'm like, how's the neighborhood? Oh, it's been crazy. This house just sold for $200. It was like $120 like 3 years ago. And so then I start scratching my head. I start looking at the businesses, what's going on with the streets. You just start mentally going through the city, as I'm sure you do too. But you have knowledge.
Right. I'm a runner. I like running, and when I go to a new city and I don't know, I'll go for a run, and usually around a cool urban downtown or whatever there might be, and get a feel for it.
You get a vibe of the city.
You get a vibe of the city, and that's you don't have to run. You can get on a scooter, right? A Lime scooter or whatever. You know? Or just get in a taxi, an Uber, and ask the Uber driver to drive you around and be like, hey man, what are the best pockets you reckon I'd live in? And it could be anyone. I'm sure they're going to give you their 2 cents on what they think is good. You survey 3 or 4 different Uber drivers. I'm sure you're going to get a pretty good idea.
Be an average.
You're going to be an average.
That's the thing, and that's what, $5 a ride,
right.
$10 a ride to get some really incredible intel that they might be 3rd generation. Like,
yes.
It's not that hard.
It's not at all.
Which is good for you and I to keep people out. But like at the same time, people won't do it. Like it's not hard, but it's just scary enough to keep them at bay. And I've never found anything better than real estate investing. No. I've been looking, I've been trying, I've played around a little bit. For me, this math just makes the most sense.
100%.
Especially long term.
Yep. And we didn't even get into what I'm really passionate about now, particularly with commercial real estate, is business ecosystems. So, think of a table, right? Acquisitions is just one leg of the table. Another leg needs to be, okay, what else? What do I need to start taking over property management and bringing some fee income that way? Got the thought leadership through education. There's obviously a little bit of income there, but also part of my business now is I'm direct shipping stuff from China, flooring, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, because I can save money. Now, I'm not making any money there, but I'm saving money. But maybe I could do a small supply to my buddies who also have 10,000 units across the country, and I can sell them a bunch of stuff.
And you can provide them a service, so now you're in with that group, and hey, there's this guy Reed who's getting me this stuff at 28% less.
Right.
Now you're providing value to a group before you may not have been able to.
Right.
It's just the networking game.
Yep. And true wealth. Yes, real estate is the rock of that wealth, but I think when you start building businesses around that, that ecosystem is where true legacy wealth, I believe, comes
100%. And they feed each other.
Yeah, they do.
And they literally will feed each other. And you have a supply chain coming in, feeding the real estate, and you're doing the coaching and like the education, which it all works if you're willing to do the work. Everybody wants to make it easy.
100%. And my engineer brain is always like, let's take that apart, and I could do that.
That's right.
I'm like, I hire a third-party GC on all my stuff, and I'm like, I could do that business, but that would require me moving to San Antonio. I don't really want to do that.
You don't want to do that. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you have to choose what's right for you right now.
Choose your battles.
You got married. You probably want to spend more time with your wife, not more time going to the city fighting with the planning commission.
Right.
Right. So, Reed, this has been amazing, man. It's been so much fun. Please plug your book. This book is amazing.
Yeah, look, it is Investing in the US. It's the title of my show. I started it 3.5 years ago. We're about to do an interview with you. Really excited to have you on the show. But it's just really all the best episodes from that show jammed into a book.
Oh, cool.
With my story tied around it, and really more of a step-by-step guide, methodically through the chapters of, what is it like back when I first went to that first networking event? What the hell's a cap rate? Like learning the investment lingo. Now, being that perspective of international, it's written for both locals and international folks. But yeah, just listen to the journey. Talk about choosing markets, talking about how to underwrite your first deal, talking about the power of syndication, talk about different financing tips that, I didn't know anything about hard money when I first moved to the United States. What's hard money? Is it different than soft money?
That's right. It's something you definitely need to learn.
Yeah. And just the different financing, LLCs, all these sort of stuff. Like it's a high level 30,000 view of American real estate, and from my eyes. And get your hands on a copy at my website, which is readgoossens.com. And man, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Dude, I love it, man. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you guys next time. What's happening, everybody? Today we have a special guest on the show. We're going to talk a lot about real estate investing, kind of just what it feels like to punt your fears, legacy for himself and for his family. I don't want to go too far into where we're at now. We're going to start in the past a little bit, work into the present, and then talk about this legacy into the future. Hit pause right now.
Just real
on the clip and go look up. Yeah, for sure. And it's been so good. I mean, for me, like, it's important for me to learn, like, because I get super into something like full gas, and I learn it, like, that's amazing. And then something else will walk by, and I'm like, ooh, that. I want to learn that now. So that's been my kind of hustle since I was a kid. And I love it.